Nare takbir. Nare takbir. Islam. Islam. Ahmadiyya. Hazrat Amir al-Mu'minin. Hazrat Amir al-Mu'minin.
This is it.
Nare takbir.
Be seated, please. Be seated. Abdul Sahib, you come here.
We have the questions. We have about
Beg pardon?
15 questions so far. But and then Mr. Isawema is going to read the questions.
Please, Sadar Sahib. Continue. Wa alaikum salam wa
My
rahmatullah.
name is Isa Wema, and I will be reading the questions this evening. The first question is from Muhammad Abu Shiri from Tanzania. His question is,
Please.
what is the real background to the conflict in Kosovo and Bosnia?
The best answer is Allah knows best. Lot of confusion going on, claims and counterclaims. I have spoken before on this subject repeatedly, and in my opinion, the objective of this campaign is twofold. Number one, to destroy Russia's most trusted conventional ally, Yugoslavia. And at the same time, let them compel the Muslims of Kosovo to either leave their own country or be destroyed in that process. So that if in the end a Muslim state in the center of Kosovo is created, there will be very little of it. That, I think, is the purpose. So as I said before, Allah knows best.
Huzu, the second question is from Mr. Antonio Dumasi. His question is, I am a Roman Catholic and my wife is a Muslim, and we live in harmony with each other's faith because our Prophet Jesus Christ is also accommodated in the Islamic religion. My question is, how is polygamy accommodated in Islamic faith and Ahmadiyya community?
First of all, let me observe on the question itself. It's impossible that a Muslim and a Catholic Christian should live in harmony and peace because their faiths clash. It's impossible unless they take their religious very, trivially and don't pay any attention to their religion. So practically, this question should have come from an atheist who doesn't believe in his religion, who doesn't take his religion seriously, and then, of course, he can live in harmony with anybody in the world. So that seems to be the case. But he may think otherwise. Now, what is the question later on? In the end, what was the question?
Well, the other bit, it says, regarding the wives, how is it possible to live or share a husband without conflict of interest, especially when true love is involved within the parties concerned?
You see, it is possible only when there is harmony in the house, despite marrying more than one wife. And it was possible also according to the Old Testament. There were prophets of God, or kings as you may call them, who lived with around 100 wives, plus add concubines to that number, and the Bible states that they live in harmony. So that is a question which you should address to your own elders. How could they live in harmony? As far as Islam goes, Islam provides for separation in case there is no harmony. In that case, any wife has a right to ask for divorce and she will be granted. Next, please.
The next question is from Abu Hanif Saif Allah from the USA. His question is in 3 parts, but they are all related. Is there any good in this? It says, is there any good in this so-called New Age thinking that the
New?
Western world is pushing?
In this so-called new?
Is there any good
Yes.
in this so-called New Age thinking that the Western world is pushing? Should Ahmadi Muslims become involved in this New Age thinking? Who was the Antichrist shortly after the physical death of Jesus Christ alayhi salam?
The first question, you have also asked the second one?
Yes.
But let me answer the first question.
Okay.
I cannot fully comprehend the question itself. What is the new age where an Ahmadi has to reconcile with the new demands of the age? What is that age? I'm asking you.
So what's the question? The new thinking age? New age thinking. What do you mean by new age
Okay,
thinking?
the New Age thing is a new philosophy in terms of how one should go about improving themselves and finding their inner spirituality and that type of stuff without really basing it upon the religion, without basing it upon God itself.
Do you follow
Yeah,
the?
that
Tell me.
that somebody can be good, ladies. Somebody can be good, ladies, individual life without recourse to God, and then improve himself, just being good. to
Having
society.
recourse to ladies in this life,
Yeah, and
how can he has communication with God or what?
how can he have that live independently of God?
Independently?
Yeah, that is what. That
Still,
is,
the question is
Not
rather
clear.
perplexing for me.
yeah.
All Muslims who live in accordance with the Quran, and all Christians who live in accordance with Christianity, and all Jews, etc., who live in accordance with their teaching, have no problem in communicating with God. So why should you have any problem? There's no question of that.
Because where I'm from in Milwaukee, we have this Ahmadi people have become involved in so-called this New Age thinking, and I didn't agree with it, but some of the Ahmadis have become involved and feel that there's some good in it, and I've told them that there's no good in this. Only thing that's good, it has to be based in the religion of Islam. Allah has to be at the basis of what you're talking about, and if Allah is not there, then I don't see how you could become involved in something like that.
Still, but
One confusion leads me to another one. Please, do you understand?
just like an atheist, that is.
What?
So people say that we don't need God very much.
It's a different question altogether from the one he began with. If people do not need God, let them go to hell. God doesn't need them, right? You're not responsible for them. Okay. Next.
The last part of his question is, who was this Antichrist who shortly after the death of Jesus Christ alayhi salam?
Shortly after the death of Jesus Christ, there was no Antichrist as such. Antichrist was mentioned in relation to the latter days. And the latter days are the age we are passing through. So if there is any Antichrist, it has to be expected nowadays in this latter days or this age, which extends maybe for the last 200 years or so. So what is the meaning of Antichrist? The one who is against the true teachings of Jesus Christ. And because it is the Christians, we believe, who exchange the teachings of Jesus Christ and created such unrest in the world with all sorts of injustices committed against all others if you have power. That is not Jesus. That is not the teaching of Jesus. So whoever has done this has to be Antichrist. Please.
Huzur, this question is in 3 parts, and all of them are related. May I read them together or one after the other?
Please come forward a bit closer and read them.
The first part is on cloning. We have heard about Dolly the sheep that was cloned.
Mm-hmm.
Now there is talk about human beings being to be cloned. What is Islam's stand on cloning of human beings?
Islam proposes a system created by God of giving birth to children. In that system, all children have an attachment with their parents, with their mothers and fathers, and this is quite natural. This attachment is very important for keeping the society together. Now, in cloning, there is no such thing. With whom would Dolly have attachment? And if human cloning is pursued seriously, then all the children born would have no attachment to anybody. Even born in America, suppose you clone Mr. Clinton and produce 1 million Clintons, they would not have any obligation to America either, because they will be born out of cloning, and they would not care for who their parents were. So cloning is a very, very serious matter, ethical matter, which is being discussed among scientists of both schools. Personally, I believe that these experiments are very dangerous for the future peace of man.
The second question is on artificial insemination. I have in mind Diane Blood. I have in mind Diane Blood, the lady who had her husband's sperm taken while he was seriously ill. After her death, she was refused permission in the UK to have the sperm inserted in her, so she went to the European court, which granted her permission, and she has a son by her dead husband. What is the view of Islam on this?
See, strictly speaking, if a woman has been inseminated by her husband's semen, even after his death, it should not be unlawful, because it was the husband. That is one answer, one possible answer. The other is that the moment the husband dies, then he is no longer the husband of the same wife, because the wife can marry again. So that would lead us to very problematic matters. The person, the lady, is free after the death of her husband. She could marry another person, and at the same time, she could have recourse to that piece of semen, saying that it was taken while my husband was still alive. So all this rigmarole of the modern sciences, etc., is very stupid, and I don't think it should be encouraged. Closer? Okay. How much closer? Enough? Okay. Yes, please.
What is Islam's view on surrogate motherhood, where one signs a contract and takes money to have a child for another woman?
You know, when the woman bears a child who is not the wife of the husband, it is illegal in Islam, because practically you have a wife without marrying her. So surrogate mothers should be condemned, not the mothers, but this system which promotes the creation of surrogate mothers should be condemned as unlawful and illegal.
This question is from Mrs. Somaya Pilichowska, an artist from London. She's British with Polish and Russian background.
Yes, I know.
The question is, what do you say to those who say Iblis is a fallen angel? It actually says so in the Encyclopedia Britannica. Is it correct?
I don't know of any book as Encyclopedia Britannica which holds any religious authority. So the question should have been raised with reference to the Quran or the Bible. So the very question is baseless and meaningless, because it is founded on a book, Encyclopedia Britannica, which has no religious authority. Please. I have answered, that's enough, please.
This question is from Bintu Malik, Ghana. Assalamu alaikum, says. Are there any differences in beliefs, whatever, between Ahmadiyya and the other sectors of Muslims or Islam?
Who has asked this question?
Bintu Malik of
Where is
Ghana.
she? Among the ladies section?
Yes.
Sitting there. So what does she want to understand? The difference, fundamental differences between Ahmadis and non-Ahmadi Muslims?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes, and she says if there are any differences, what are they and why are they different?
You see, the basic difference is that the Ahmadi Muslims believe that the promised Messiah and the promised Mahdi has come. I mentioned two names and use the singular in has come, because Ahmadis believe that the promised Messiah and the promised Mahdi are to be the title of the same person. So the person has to be a single person, although the titles are two. So we believe he has come, fulfilling their prophecies. Non-Ahmadi Muslims believe he has not yet come. So all the differences grow from this fundamental difference.
This question is from Amin Salif. If the Ahmadiyyat movement in Islam believes that there is no finality in prophethood, what is the future of a prophet as we progress toward the end of the Day of Judgment?
Who told you that Ahmadis believe there is no finality in prophethood? The difference is only about the interpretation of the word finality. We believe that Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the final prophet of God. Final in what sense? In every sense of the word which pays a compliment to his personality and his office. So he is final in the sense of reaching closest to God. Beyond that, there is no person. So in his nearness to God, he is final. And in the completion of his message, the perfection of the book which is revealed to him, he is also final. No other person in the world can claim to have any new revelation bestowed upon him which speaks of the laws, divine laws. So he would, if God speaks to him, we believe he would speak to him within the four walls of the Holy Quran teachings. So in that sense, his book would remain final. So any prophet who brings the final book will have to be called, with reference to the book, the final prophet. Secondly, we believe him to be the final in the sense that his word cannot be annulled by any person on earth till doomsday. Whatever he said would go for all ages to come. And there is no one who can cancel his word. So we believe in all these meanings of finality. Thank you.
This question is from Alhaj Musa, Imam of Nigeria. What is the practical and literary meaning of Khilafat of Khataman Nabiyyin? Given the diversity of opinion in the Muslim world over many issues, how does His Holiness envisage a real Muslim unity the world over?
First of all, you want to understand the meaning of Khilafat?
Khataman Nabiyyin.
Khataman Nabiyyin, I have already spoken on. That part, now you are talking of Khilafat. That's right. The word Khilafat can be mentioned with reference to directly to God or with reference to an earlier prophet. The real Khalifa is created by the word of God on earth, and he is resurgent to Allah, he is deputy to Allah. So that is the true meaning of Khilafat. So Adam is referred to as Khalifa, and so Khilafat came to its perfection. That also is the meaning of Khataman Nabiyyin, in the person of Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that is one understanding of the word Khilafat. The second is that when a Khalifa created by Allah passes away, then the Khilafat to him descends among his followers. And in that case, although that Khalifa is called the Khalifa of the previous prophet, but he inherits the Khilafat of Allah through that prophet, which means it becomes binding on him to follow exactly the teaching of the prophet whom he is following. In the other sense, because the Khalifa previous to him, that is prophet, follows Allah's word perfectly, so his Khalifa has to do the same. He has no other authority. These are the two meanings of the word Khalifa. Thank you.
This question is from the same Alhaj Musa. Said, why is it that Khilafat as an institution of Islam, clearly mentioned in the Holy Quran, yet it is being ignored and not being practiced by all Muslims? How can the Muslims be helped when confronted by incidents like
This question
Kosovo?
has to be addressed to the leaders of the other Muslims. We have not committed the crime which you are mentioning. Thank you.
Same question by Musa again. Said, given the diversity of opinion in the Muslim world over many issues, how does His Holiness envisage a real Muslim unity the world over?
You know, only Allah can create real Muslim unity. And Allah has created Khilafat again in two ways. Number one, the true Khalifa of Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which was to be Imam Mahdi and Masih, metaphorically speaking, he has appeared. He came just for this purpose, to forge a unity among the Muslims. But a unity can be forged only among those who agree to the leadership which has been created by Allah. If they reject him and continue to reject him, then no unity can be forged among them. only gradually, with the passing of time, those who follow this Imam created by Allah, they go on spreading and spreading and spreading. And the other people are squeezing into smaller units until this process is completed and a new unity is born in which all the previous Muslims have also been included. Now this process can be seen in Africa, everywhere. Not so much in Nigeria because of some other problems, but still in Nigeria continuously Ahmadiyya is spreading among the opposing Muslims in every area. Nowhere would you find Ahmadiyya shrinking. So that means they are on way to that unity. In Africa now, Ghana, for instance, is a good example of this, the speed at which we are gaining this unity. I think by the end of this year, Ghanaian Ahmadi Muslims would have gained ground by the tune of 1,500,000 new converts. Imagine. The same thing is happening in other African countries, French-speaking African countries, everywhere the same story is being repeated. So we are on way to gaining that unity. It all depends on the resistance created by the mullahs. If they do so, they will do so at the cost of their own followers. They would lead them back to dispersion and deterioration and whatnot, but the only way they can lead their followers back to the Islam of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is by telling them that Ahmadiyya is true and you must accept it. Now, with the grace of Allah, in Africa, it is not under the influence of chiefs that people are following Ahmadiyya. It is largely under the influence of the imams who know religion. When they say to their followers that we are 100% certain now, and we have prayed and Allah has also told us that Ahmadiyya is true, now we lead you to Ahmadiyya, and most of their followers follow their advice. Thank you.
This question is from 14-year-old Camila Silcott, who lives in Brixton.
How many years old?
14.
14.
Yes.
Where is she? 14-year-old little girl over there. Yes, please.
3 questions. Why are the Muslim women not dressed as written in the books of Islam?
Why do the Muslims do what?
Do not dress, the women, Muslim women do not dress as written in Islam. Is it well in there?
She says, why are the Muslim women not dressed as written in the books of Islam?
What is written in the book of Islam? People have different opinions about the dress, how the women should be dressed, and there's so many schools of thought on this issue. They're divided among each other. You, for instance, who has asked this question, I believe you are dressed in accordance with the Islamic teaching. You are yourself dressed in accordance with Islamic teaching. So if any Ahmadi Muslim girls are dressed like you, I would call them dressed in accordance with the Islamic teaching. But every individual is also free. He or she is responsible for his acts to God. All I can do is to advise them and admonish them according to the teachings of Islam. Otherwise, I cannot force Islamic teaching upon any person. Thank you. Second question.
Her second question is, why do Jehovah Witnesses call God Jehovah instead of God?
In fact, they do not understand the term Jehovah themselves. The Holy Quran speaks of of Allah as well as who, Allah, He Allah. So God also spoke to the earlier people in these two different styles. Who, that is He, indicates that He is alone. There is no other one. And when you speak of Allah, then you think of the similar term used in the Bible, which is Uluhim. So the biblical commentators have failed to understand that these two terms apply to the same God and doesn't create the slightest difference by which name you call Him. So ask Jehovah's Witnesses why they insist on calling Allah as Yahweh. The same word should be addressed as O Allah, O my Allah, He who is the only one, etc., etc. There are different names of Allah, different styles of addressing to Him, but He remains to be the same. Please.
The third question is, are we Muslims prepared to look out for each other, or are we going to fight against each other?
As far as I know, Ahmadis are not fighting against each other. So your objection is not against Ahmadi Muslims. The rest of the Muslims, all of them are fighting with each other in so many ways. So ask them why. The answer which I know is that because they are not following the Imam who was created by Allah.
This question is from Dr. Pambu, chairman of the user groups at the Newham Refugee Services.
Yes, please.
We are very concerned with the refugees in Kosovo. We have 3,000 Kosovan refugees in the borough. What does the Islamic world think of the situation? How can we deal with it?
See, the entire Islamic world has been saddled by America. So they cannot think in terms other than the American terms. So because America is helping them, they have also started helping them. But it's only a small trickle which cannot save the dying hundreds and thousands of Ahmadi Muslims in Kosovo, or Muslims in Kosovo. Saudi Arabia has also started sending food aid, and it is said that it has bridged the channel. Through aeroplanes, they are sending food aid, etc. But what is that? As compared to the money, the mountains of money which Saudi Arabia possesses. If Saudi Arabia alone had decided to look after the refugees and their relevant needs from Kosovo, Saudi Arabia could do it easily. But they are just earning names, propaganda value, that's all they are interested in. We have, Ahmadis, have no government. We have grave financial responsibilities to be discharged all over the world. Yet, in addition to that, we are quietly sending aid to the Kosovans. And we do not make any fuss out of it. Amir Sahib met me, Amir Sahib UK, last night and said that we have collected 20,000 pounds and they should be sent immediately to Kosovo in terms of material aid, etc. Germany had done it long ago and they are continuously doing it. Similarly, other Ahmadis from all over the world are doing the same thing. So because we truly feel for them, we are trying to resolve the problem as best as we can. And I think if all the Muslims of the world followed suit, as far as the economic problem is concerned, that could be easily resolved. As far as the political problem is concerned, that is not within our grasp. And I have already spoken on this, that the political problem is dealt with by great powers, and they have a design, and they are going to work according to their design. We can't change that design.
This question is from Isa Ben Kilson from Ghana.
Isa? Where is Isa? At the back. Oh, that's right.
He says, according to the Holy Quran, man was created from a single female. Was it one single female, or it started simultaneously in different parts of the world? Has man not descended from apes? The second part of the question.
Which ape? Female ape? You see, I have spoken on this subject repeatedly, that man is born through a long process of evolution. And the Holy Quran fully supports this. To begin with, the reproduction had to be carried out by a single cell, because life was not divided in the beginning between male and female. So the single cell which was responsible for giving birth was referred to as a female, because mothers give birth. So in view of this, that cell is referred to as female. It doesn't mention Hawa to be the mother of Adam. Hawa, as Christians believe, was carved out of the rib of Adam. So according to the Holy Quran, when the Quran refers to a female origin, it only refers to the cellular origin of man having started from a female single unit.
This question is from Fatima Malik, Ghana.
Fatima Malik. Yes, please.
Concerning the annual Eid festival,
Yes.
according to the Holy Quran, Eid prayer should be held on the day after the Arafat. Why is it always celebrated by Ahmadis on a different day, contrary to all Muslims throughout the world? Why this difference?
No, she's not well informed. All Muslims have their Eid on different days, 3 different days. And this is a problem which cannot be resolved. It's impossible. Now, when, according to her, Eid begins at Mecca, that may be the time of midnight in other countries of the world. And that may be a time of the previous day in many other countries of the world. So a unity which is geographically impossible and is against the law created by God is not possible to be attained. And that is how it is designed. People should pursue Eid, they should ceremonize Eid in accordance with their own timings. It would remain connected with the Hajj, but at the same time, people are given different options. That is to say, they should follow their own calendar. According to their calendar, when the Hajj day arrives, that would be the day for them to follow Eid. So in a way, it will always be related with Hajj, and at the same time, this geographical problem will be resolved. Thank you.
This question is from Muftau Adeshola, Nigerian student. Two questions actually. Says, can you brief us on the meaning of Khatman Nabiyyin?
I've already done it.
The second question is the promised Messiah a prophet?
The promised Messiah is referred to as a prophet of God who is subordinate to Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as such, there can be no objection against this, because as long as he is under the yoke of the Holy Quran, under the yoke of the word of Muhammad Rasulullah sallam, under the yoke of his example, he can be raised to prophethood because of that. If he is perfectly following the Quran and perfectly following the word of the Holy Prophet and the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet, then according to the promise given by the Holy Quran, he could be or should be raised to the status of prophethood. But that is subordinate prophethood. And that promise is given in Surah An-Nisa in the verse, وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَالرَّسُولَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَالصِّدِّيقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ وَحَسُنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. Whoever obeys Allah and this Prophet, it is he who would be granted the religious awards. That is to say, he would be minan nabiyyin. He could be counted from among the prophets who follow Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He could be min as-siddiqeen, that is the highest award after the prophethood. And such a one could also be counted from among the shuhada. And such a one could also be counted among salihin, the righteous people in general. So these are the four awards which are religious and spiritual awards, which are mentioned in the Holy Quran. They can all be attained by your submission to Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if a prophethood is gained by that, that would speak highly of that person, which would mean that he perfectly submitted to the authority of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there can be no objection whatsoever it is, whatsoever there is. So we believe that Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam or Imam Mahdi was made the Imam of the age because he had followed Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as such we see no objection whatsoever.
This question is from Kingsley Safo. Why is it that the Ahmadiyya movement is not widely accepted even in Pakistan, where it originated?
Mostly in Pakistan, not even in Pakistan. Because in Pakistan it has been made unlawful to follow Ahmadiyya movement. So much so that also if the Ahmadis practice Islam, it has been made illegal. So the very act of illegalizing the practice of Islam speaks highly of Ahmadis, that despite the difficulties they continue to practice Islam, and speaks ill of those people who have declared the Muslim acts based upon the Holy Quran and the Holy Sunnah to be illegal for anybody in the world. So it shows that they are not Muslims who are doing it, and these remain to be Muslims. But people follow the governments of the world because most people have ulterior motives to pursue. And if the government says something, and if the governments make it difficult for any person to act upon a course which is contrary to the government-made laws, then people refrain from doing such things. That is why Ahmadiyyat is not spreading as fast in Pakistan as in other free countries of the world, like African countries. It's a tribute to African countries that their religion is free. And it is a reflection on Pakistan that they have tried to put shackles on religion. Thank you.
This question is from Dr. Mohammed Hussein, medical doctor from Somalia.
Yes.
So could you please give some evidence to clarify the timing of the claim of Imam Mahdi?
Timing?
The timing.
Timing of his claim. I can give reference to an oft-quoted hadith of Ahmad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, which has been accepted previously by all the Muslims, Sunnis or Shias, whoever they are. And that hadith speaks of a sign of Imam Mahdi which was not within the scope of any human to make appear in the world. Those signs related to heavenly bodies. And heavenly bodies are outside human control. The signs speak of eclipses. And the signs mentioned in this regard are very elaborate and such as cannot accidentally happen. According to Ahmad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, inna li mahdiyina ayatane lam tukuna mundu khalqi samawati wal ard awwaluha an tankasifu shamsu fi awwali laylati min ramadana wa yankasifu shamsu fi nisfi minhu. The exact words I'll read.
Starting from there.
Yes. قال إن لمهدينا آيتين لم تكون منذ خلق السماوات والأرض ينكسف القمر not تنكسف ينكسف القمر في أول ليلة من رمضان وينكسف الشمس it should be تنكسف الشمس في النصف منه ولم تكون منذ خلق السماوات والأرض. This is a tradition taken from Darqutni, which means that the moon will get eclipsed on the first night and the sun will get eclipsed on the 28th day, that is the middle of its eclipse days. Now everybody knows that there are only 3 days of eclipses fixed by Allah. The moon and the sun cannot be eclipsed on any other dates. The moon can only get eclipsed on the 13th, 14th and 15th. And the sun can only get eclipsed on 27th, 28th and 29th. Now, which is the first date of moon's eclipse as mentioned in Hadith? That has to be 13th. And which is the middle of day for the sun's eclipse? That has to be 28th. And the second condition is that had to happen during Ramadan, not during any other month. So when Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu claimed to be the Mahdi, 4 years after that, the moon got eclipsed exactly on the 13th of Ramadan. And the sun got eclipsed exactly on the 28th, which was the middle date for the sun's eclipse. So this prophecy has got fulfilled. And this prophecy as such has not been fulfilled in the case of any proponent of Mahdaviyyat, any claimant of Mahdaviyyat in the history of Islam. You cannot produce a single person who claimed to be Mahdi and who referred to this prophecy having been fulfilled in his time. Either moons and suns got eclipsed after his death or before it, but they had no relationship with his claim. But in case of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, this got clearly fulfilled like a broad daylight. No one can shut his eyes to the fulfillment of this prophecy.
Huzur, we have about 15 more questions.
Yes, please. I'm here.
This question is from Ahmed Kwating.
Yes, please.
There are 3 questions actually. It says, the first one is smoking forbidden in Islam?
No.
The second question is,
Smoking didn't exist at the time of the revelation of the Holy Quran. And also there is no verse in the Holy Quran which can be applied to smoking as forbidden. So despite the fact that it was not invented during that time, you can still say it could be mentioned in the Holy Quran, but it is not mentioned in the Quran. And it is not mentioned in the words of Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So who is there now who can add to Sharia of Islam? It's bad, all right. It's injurious for health. So are all poisons. But all poisons are not haram. Anybody should understand what is injurious for him and should abstain from using that.
his second question is shaking hands with the opposite sex allowed in Islam?
Shaking hands with women?
Opposite, yes.
Opposite sex, of course. Islam does not promote shaking hands because it can lead to other problems. And so it's better to nip a thing in the bud. That is why Islam doesn't promote shaking hands with other sex, provided they are not closely blood related, like mothers, children, daughters, etc., etc. There the shaking of the hands with ladies and the shaking of the hands with men is not forbidden at all. So where it is forbidden, it has a specific purpose to serve.
His third question is, I would like to know Islam's stand on perming of hair.
On?
Perming of hair, ladies perming their hair.
Curl their hairs.
Yes.
And payment.
Is this question from an African? That's not their problem at all. The question should be straightening of hair instead of curling their hair. The small things, you shouldn't take them seriously. Next, please.
This question is from Josie Hyman, Caribbean, age 40.
Where is Mr. Josie Hyman? A lady, oh. It's Miss Josie, eh? Right.
She says, will there be any more prophets after Prophet Muhammad? If so, who is that prophet?
I've also already answered this question, that only a person can be entitled a prophet by God if he perfectly follows the final prophet Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So if anyone claims to be a prophet of that nature, he has to prove it with reference to the word from Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Like I just mentioned the hadith about the eclipse of moon and sun. So in that way, the onus of proof would lie on the shoulder of the person who makes this claim, and he can only present any proof which is based on the verdict of the Quran and the verdict of Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
This is a question from Mrs. Zehra Ali Ibrahim, who is from Iraq and is Kurdish.
Is?
She's
From Iraq and what else?
Kurdish.
Kurdish. Yes, please. Yes, please.
She says, the promised Messiah and Mahdi has been dead for over 100 years. If he was a prophet, how come most of the people in the world today do not know about him?
You see, because most of the people in the world today do not know about Ahmad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam either. We appeared 1400 years ago. So it's the fault of the people, not the fault of the Prophet who has been sent by Allah. So there's a lot of difference between 100 years and 1400 years, isn't there? So it all depends on the attitude of the people and the attitude of the religious leaders. If they decide to oppose a prophet created by Allah and appointed by Allah, then they spread falsehood about him. And that is why, although apparently Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is known throughout the world, but he is known in a manner that his true personality is still his true personality is still hidden by the false propaganda against him. So in that manner of speaking, we can say that he is not known. Because if he had been known truly as he claimed himself to be, then I believe majority of the world should have followed him by this time. So that exactly applies to the case of the claims of the promised Messiah. Thank you.
This next question is from somebody who wants to remain anonymous.
Okay.
It says, where is paradise?
Paradise, I tell you, a paradise must begin within the person. If he witnesses paradise within him, then he can hope for a paradise after death. If while living on this earth, he does not witness paradise within him, he cannot hope for any paradise to be given to him after death. So you create your own paradises. That is, when you submit to the will of Allah, that is paradise. When you perfectly do that, your paradise is of the highest order. And as such, you can hopefully claim, if you're true, nobody else knows, nobody else has a right to give a verdict on this. Only Allah knows. So if you are sure in the sight of Allah that you have really submitted to His will, then I can assure you that Allah would never deny such a person paradise after death. Thank you.
This is from Rashid Amin, a Nigerian student.
Where is Rashid?
He says, why is it that there are no intermarriages between African Ahmadis and Asian Ahmadis?
There are many intermarriages. Who told you there are no? There are many intermarriages between African Ahmadis and Asians. Particularly this is happening in America. American African Ahmadis, I can quote so many, who got married to girls from Qadian and who are very happily married. An example can be quoted of the best marriages in America, which have been conducted between African Ahmadis from America and Asian Ahmadis, that is from Qadian mainly, but also from Rabwa and from other places in Pakistan. So you have been misinformed about it. Thank you.
This is a question from Ishmael Buachi.
Ismail, where is Ismail? Yes, please.
It says, is the wearing of gold by men permitted in Islam?
No. Only in Ghana. Where poor ladies are deprived of all the gold, and men appropriate the entire gold. Or misappropriate, I mean. Please.
This is from Abdul Malik Badu.
Where is Abdul Malik? Yes, please.
He says, I have read in Hadith that when the Mahdi comes, his father's name will be the same name as that of the father of Prophet Rasulullah. What is the true meaning of this saying?
Right. You see, the true meaning is that his true spiritual father will be Muhammad Rasulullah and none else. And his true spiritual mother would be the wife of Muhammad Rasulullah, that's Ummul Mumineen. So that would be the nature of the Mahdi. When you speak of the physical parents, they may be different, but they don't mean anything. Because most often the good people do not inherit the character and qualities of their parents, like Hazrat Abraham. His father was very strongly condemned in the Holy Quran, and he did not follow his qualities. So the real qualities are spiritual qualities. So as such, this hadith also refers to the quality of Imam Mahdi, the Imam Mahdi, that he will be a true spiritual son of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Thank you.
Same question, another question from Abdul Malik Badu. He says, I read in an Ahmadi commentary of the Holy Quran that Ibn Kathir says Jesus Christ is dead. I know that Ibn Kathir is highly regarded as a saintly scholar among non-Ahmadis. How is it that so many non-Ahmadis believe that Jesus Christ is alive in heaven, given that they believe in Kathir so much?
You inquire from them. You are mentioning a contradiction in their beliefs, not in my beliefs. I believe that the Holy Quran positively mentions Jesus Christ to have been dead. And there are 30 verses which can be quoted from the Quran which speak of the same subject. No other prophet of Allah has been mentioned in the Quran about whose death there are so many verses. That in itself implies a prophecy. That stress is made only because Allah knew that Muslims would one day be misled to believe in the life, the physical life of Jesus Christ. So they are repeatedly warned that no, that Messiah is physically dead, though spiritually alive. Thank you.
This question is from Amy Kona from Congo. It says, why the gap between the developed countries and the third world countries, especially African countries, is deepening day by day, while we all know that the latter have more believers of different religions, of course. Is God against development?
Against what?
Is God against development in the developing countries?
God is not against development. The people are against. The fault lies with the people who do not develop. And it has nothing to do with God. Look at Japan, for instance. It's a small Asian country, and as yet it followed the development, that is scientific development of the world, on the right lines, and now it vies with American achievements in scientific breakthroughs. In many areas it can beat America. So God is not against development. It's the people who deny themselves this course of development by their idleness and so many other factors. And largely responsible for this are the religious clergy. Fortunately for Japan in this regard, there was no such religious clergy there. But in most Muslim countries and Christian countries, the third world countries, it is the religious clergy which is responsible for hindering them from attaining this development. So the fault does not lie with Allah, it lies with the people themselves.
This question is from Dr. Mohammed Hussein.
Dr. Muhammad Hussain, yes please.
Why is there so much suffering and bloodshed in the world? Why is humanity deprived of justice and peace?
You see, whenever you speak of justice and peace, it always confuses me why two different words to be used. You should only speak of justice. Justice creates a soil on which naturally peace grows. So because the great world powers do not create that soil of justice, so no peace grows on that. That is exactly the situation in the world as prevailing today. We should all go for justice. Once you have created justice, then peace would take care of itself. Because when there is justice, there is no disorder. There has to be only peace. So if you really want to have peace in the world, start with your own personal self. Be just. And you will create an island of peace around you. That is exactly the policy of Jamaat Ahmadiyya. We are trying to create such islands of peace, and wherever Ahmadis are spreading in Africa, you will see that they are following these admonishment from Allah of being just. And when they become just, they are very peaceful. They do not fight among themselves anymore, like other Africans who do not agree with Ahmadiyya continue to fight each other. So that is the true answer. Be just and peace will take care of itself.
This question is from Mustafa Yusuf from Ghana.
Mustafa Yusuf, yes please.
Could you please give us a brief clarification about the concept of polygamy in Islam? Should it be the prerogative of the man, even if the existing wives disagree?
See, polygamy is very much misunderstood by people. If Allah had so designed that men should have right to marry more women, then Allah should have created men and women in equal number. How could that be the design of God, which is against His own act of creation? So do understand this question. This polygamy is permitted only by way of exception, not as a rule. So wherever you spread polygamy against the conditions of the Holy Quran imposed on such people who allow themselves polygamy, you understand they deprive many other of their citizens from marrying even in a single woman. That would also create problems in the society, moral problems. So do not attribute to the Quran a teaching which the Quran doesn't give at all. Polygamy is permitted only to meet certain exceptional situations, which could be personal as well as national. And this question of polygamy has been discussed with relation to wars, qital during those days. During every war, men shrink in number and women spread in number. This is not the case of old wars during the time of Rasulullah Sallam. The same thing applies to the modern world of the First World War and the Second World War. And you can inquire from all those who collect data that immediately after the war, First World War, the number of men grew smaller, shrank smaller, and number of women grew larger. The same happened during the Second World War. So as such, a complete teaching should have some room for this possibility to meet this emergency, and that is what the Holy Quran has done. So if you properly understand the teaching of polygamy in Islam, then this question cannot be asked by way of objection against it. Then one should be convinced that this book has to be from Allah, because it has answered this question so beautifully. Thank you.
This is from Stephen Kwesi Amwa, Christian.
Yes, please.
Says, as a Christian, I try to understand the Muslim religion, but not just as it was taught through Ahmadiyya friends of mine. Can I get a brief to make me understand more?
Brief?
A brief description of the Muslim faith.
This is what I am doing all through this question and answer session. The true Muslim faith is to submit to the will of one and only God. All other gods or the concepts of gods are eliminated, and to submit to His will as manifested through His prophets. This is the fundamental of Islam, and I don't think it is difficult to understand. It can be understood by all people of the world, particularly the Africans. They are closer to nature, and they should understand these preliminary things much easier than more complicated people of the so-called first world. Thank you.
His second question is, my friends preach to me that Jesus has come. How did it happen? Where and when? And he says he hopes his question is not out of place.
I've already mentioned that Jesus, the old Jesus, is dead according to the Holy Quran. And in person, in the same body, he would never appear again. But his prophecies about his recoming could not be wrong. And they were like the prophecies of old, when prophets declared they would come again, but somebody in their name came, not he himself. Like Elijah. All the Jewish people believed that Elijah would come again bodily. So also they went to Jesus Christ and inquired from him, if you are a true Messiah, we have been told in the Old Testament that before the coming of old Messiah, Elijah would appear bodily. Where is that Elijah? Or you reject Old Testament? He said, no, I do not reject Old Testament. I have a better understanding of Old Testament. In the sense that he referred to Hazrat Yahya, John the Baptist, and said, he is Elijah. Believe me or do not believe me, it's up to you. Now, how could John the Baptist be Elijah? His name was different, his father's name was different, their ages were different. The time lapse between the two ages was so much. Yet Jesus was true. So this is exactly our belief according to the reappearance of Jesus himself in this age. He has not appeared bodily, like old Elijah did not appear bodily. Jesus has appeared only spiritually, metaphorically, like old Elijah had appeared spiritually and metaphorically in the person of John the Baptist. Thank you.
This question is from Ibrahim Inte, Gambian engineering student. It says, how did the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing Allah be upon him, explain or interpret the signs of the coming of Mahdi, the promised Messiah? And what bearing has that to do with Isa or Jesus, peace be on him?
I think I've already answered these questions. Thank you. Next, please.
This is a question from Abdul Malik Badu.
Again, yes.
He said, I have read in Hadith that angels guard the oaths of Mecca. It says, angels guard the gates of Mecca and Dajjal cannot enter. What is the meaning of this statement?
You see, the mention of any reference to angels has to be metaphorical, because all sorts of un-Islamic things are being done within Mecca, and everybody knows it. So where are the guardian angels? So these things should be understood metaphorically to mean that as long as people of Mecca are right, angels will guard them. If they go wrong, then nobody would take care of them. And unfortunately, they have gone wrong in this age. You see, American soldiers and Jewish soldiers, etc., they entered during the Gulf War the gates of Mecca, didn't they? So, if Rasulullah is right, he has to be understood in the right sense. Thank you.
This is from Eddie Ajay, a Christian.
Yes.
It says, first question is, what day of the week is the worship day and why?
According to Islam, all days are worship days. 5 times a day, a Muslim appears in worship before Allah. So it's a beautiful teaching. If, according to other religions, you appear before God only once, then you're deprived of worship every day. While the best servants of Allah are those who pay homage to Him day and night. And the best homages can be paid during the times of these formal worship times in which Islam permits Muslims to gather together and worship God in an atmosphere of total dedication to Him. That is why all the mosques are kept clean and they are not decorated with any pictures, etc., so that the human attention is not diverted at all. So I think this is the beautiful teaching which should be followed by all people of the world today.
His second question is, why are the women always segregated?
Segregated. Haven't you seen enough damage done to the human society by ignoring segregation? All the modern diseases and all this, filth and lack of chastity which is spreading in the world is because of this taking license in the case of segregation. Segregation of Islam, as proposed in Islam, should be understood in the right sense, that whatever promotes free mixing of men and women with wrong motives, ulterior wrong motives, that is forbidden in Islam. Wherever chastity is promoted and the measures and means by which chastity is promoted, that is called segregation. And it is a must today as it was must in the olden times.
This question is from Ibrahim Kinte. He says, what did the Quran say about Jesus Christ, alayhi salam? Did he die a natural death or not?
I've already answered this question. The 30 verses of the Quran, we speak of the death of Jesus Christ, physical death.
His next question is, what did the Quran explain about jinn? Are they creatures like human beings?
Are they?
Creatures. Are they creatures like human beings?
No. They create human beings. So I can't say they are like human beings because they give birth to human brain and all the human organs. As yet, at the same time, they cannot think. They do it automatically through computerized programming by Allah. So Allah is the thinker behind, and the genes follow the orders of Allah, and no gene can think of itself. So without thinking,
The question was about jinn.
Jinn or gene? Jinn? Jinnat. Oh, I'm awfully sorry. I thought you said genes, because this question is very popular these days about genes and this and that and what they can do. About the jinn, no Muslim can reject the existence of jinn at all because it is mentioned in the Holy Quran repeatedly. But at the same time, if you read the Quran closely and with understanding, a new meaning of jinn will dawn upon you with reference to human beings. I have spoken on or written on this subject in detail, quoting the verses of the Quran where the word jinn is used, and in many such verses the jinn means a different thing. And the fundamental meanings of jinn have been mentioned by Muslim scholars to apply to anything which is hidden from view, which cannot be seen with naked eyes. So even germs can be called jinn. And according to the Holy Quran, most certainly this word applies to viruses, bacteria, etc., etc. And we have Muhammad Rasulullah's word to support this interpretation. So there are many possible meanings of the word jinn. But basically it applies to the great men, powerful people on earth, and small men as well. Now I can ask one question from you, and this will, if you ponder over this, you will understand the meaning of this word jinn with relation to the Sharia. Jinns are mentioned in the Quran to indicate good jinns and bad jinns, doing good things and doing bad things. But have you ever read any mention in the Quran or in any hadith that in Jannat there would be jinns?
Actually,
No.
no.
So, why are they only sent to hell when the Holy Quran also speaks of good jinns? That reveals the nature of jinns. This means that Allah cannot be unjust. If He punishes and if He rewards, how can it be possible that He only punishes jinns and does not reward them? But all the great people who follow Islam correctly and who follow any religion rightly, they would be given the reward of Jannah. So the bad people will go to hell, and their jinn refers to the leaders of human beings who have been leading them to hell. So as such, they are punished more than the ordinary people. Thank you.
This question again is from the same gentleman. Why do Ahmadis not identify themselves as Ahmadi when they go to Mecca during the pilgrimage?
No, they do. They always do. They never hide this fact. If they hide this fact and they say they are not Ahmadis, then their Hajj is gone overboard, finished. There is no sense in going to Hajj. That is why I have told all Ahmadis to make it very clear in their papers they fill that they belong to Ahmadiyya Muslim community. They just don't call themselves Ahmadis, but call themselves Ahmadi Muslims. So if any ambassador of any country shuts his eyes to this fact and permits him to go to Hajj, it's his kindness, and through kindness of many Saudi embassies all over the world, every year many Ahmadis are permitted to go to Hajj. Similarly, there are Ahmadis living in Saudi Arabia, a very large number of Ahmadis living in Saudi Arabia, who do not have to fill any form. They perform Hajj like all the residents of Saudi Arabia. Thank you.
We have about 10 questions left.
With no time.
Okay.
You see, look at the watch.
The same gentleman says,
You have not looked at the watch. The time is over.
okay,
So what can I do?
nothing.
Nothing. So these questions which remain unanswered, they can be sent to MTA. Through Muslim Television Ahmadiyya, I'll answer those questions inshallah, and you are responsible for conveying the answers to the people concerned. Huh?
Yes.
Right? You organize this.
Yes.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.